They might want to sort certain legal issues and problems out, I assume.
Yeah, definitely. So you want to get your house in order as if you were selling your house at home, your residential property. You're going to want to make it look nice and presentable to a buyer.
Get the jet wash out.
Absolutely.
Corporate law jet wash.
Yeah, that's an analogy you want to use, Martin, definitely. And just getting rid of, any of those skeletons in the closet, just, making sure everything's in order so that, you're giving a buyer fewer opportunities to sort of chip away at
the price. So if you've got some litigation that's pending, or you might want to get that settled.
Yeah, look at it, get some proper advice, and things happen in business. You're often chasing bad debts, or there's an employee issue or whatever. That buyers, sophisticated buyers, will understand that is an issue, but get proper advice, get it dealt with quickly, promptly.
Before the sale, because when you come to sell it, a bit like somebody buying your house, that purchaser is going to say, well, look, I want X off because the damp-proof course needs to be re-injected. I'm using that as an analogy from my own first house that I bought. A damp-proof course needed to be sorted out.
Fair enough.
And I negotiated, just to show what a good lawyer negotiator I am, I negotiated a discount from the house because I had to go and get damp-proof course injected in.
So a buyer's not going to want to pay for something that happened on seller's watch. And so, it'd be common to have some sort of price reduction or contractual cover that would cover any eventualities as a result of that. So what we're trying to do is reduce those opportunities, reduce those issues.
And if there isn't an obvious buyer, people will use what typically like a corporate finance broker, somebody to put the business out and market the business.
Yeah, depending on sort of what industry or sector you're in, there are different sort of advisors available to you. And we work with loads of different advisors in different sectors, whether it's healthcare or manufacturing or energy or education or whatever. And it's just getting the right person in touch with you. And so if someone came to me and said, I'm selling this...
A pharmacy, you would know who you would refer the pharmacist
right,
to.
You need to speak to these people. And they would then, start the sales process and the running the figures and getting it prepared, really.
If you can agree a price and it is a sale of shares, arm's length to a buyer, that is, provided you can find that buyer, that's doable within if you've got the right lawyer and right team engaged, that's doable within the timescale.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I would generously give, a 2 to 3 month timescale would be a comfortable timescale for a set of focused parties. And if you wanted to do it quicker, it's definitely achievable.
Broadly, though, once I've got my buyer of my shares in place, in terms of the process that's involved, I've heard of something that's called due diligence. DD. You guys call it DD.
We do.
Not D&D. Did you ever play Dungeons and Dragons?
I was cool, yeah.
No, you. Well, fair enough. I did play a little bit of it. Advanced Dungeons and Dragons was the one that I played. But what is due diligence? Talk me through that.
So due diligence is, I suppose, it overlaps with sort of that preparation for sale. So a buyer is going to want to know what they're buying, in the same way that you want to know what you're buying in terms of a house. You'll go and walk around, knock on the walls, make sure the windows are watertight. Yeah. Similar with a business, you're going to make sure that the employees are being properly paid. There aren't any customer complaints. Similarly, the property is up to scratch. There aren't any issues with the landlord. What's the bad debt situation? And we go through a process where we ask a lot of questions into that, and we drill down into.
Or at least your buyer will be asking you a lot of questions, and we'll be helping you answer those questions.
And so whichever side we're on, we're either looking into it or we're responding to those and trying to, not present it in a way that it is, not going to sort of prejudice your position from a negotiation or a price point of view.
And up to a point too, you will then. You will get back. You produce some sort of a report will be produced, presumably by the buyers.
Yeah, so you'd expect a report to come out of the results of that. That will result in maybe further questions, maybe some contractual protections, and that sort of, that's why we were trying to get a house in order to reduce those issues. And then off the back of that, we go into the sort of the contractual negotiations. a lot of that will be sort of generic for most transactions, but then sort of transaction specific based on due diligence or what's been agreed.
And this ends up typically in, again, I'm going to use an acronym now, but this ends up in an SPA. What's that stand for? So it's one of those.
A share purchase agreement,
right,
is what we like to call it, an SPA. So that's what we'll get
negotiated.
Yeah, really, from start. So once we've got the due diligence underway, and then the buyer will produce this contract, and then it's on the parties to turn that, negotiate it, and that's where having your advisors who are familiar with the process, with the industry, the sectors you're working in, who understand the issues, and cut through the crap, as it were, to what does matter to the client.
A buyer or a seller of something that's in that industry. And in terms of that will also lead to a set of warranties that the seller will typically, they'll be asked to provide a set of warranties. What's the purpose of that?
Yeah, so the warranties are statements that a seller's going to provide. So you're going to say, yes, there are no product issues, or yes, that everything's we are compliant with all laws, etc. And then that gives the buyer an angle. If those statements turn out not to be true, then they can look at
bringing a claim after the sale
contract, subject to certain conditions. So as part of the sale process, one of our jobs is to put in protections, limitations, we call them, but they're essentially hoops or hurdles for the buyer to go over before a claim can actually be made. So it's not just a matter of a buyer making a claim for every 10 or 15 or £100. We would have financial limits, we would have time limits that cover these claims. So one of our jobs as a seller, or acting for a seller, is to protect that purchase price as much as possible. And then alongside those warranties is we have what we would call the disclosure process, which is not dissimilar to due diligence. So the disclosure would be treated as a shield. So where we know those warranties or those statements are not going to be true, what we can actually do is disclose the true issue.